My name is Andrew and I'm 50 years old. Until 6 months ago, I thought I knew everything about my life. I had what I believed was a solid marriage with Jennifer, my wife of 23 years. We lived in a comfortable suburban home in Denver, Colorado. I worked as a logistics manager for a mid-sized shipping company, the same job I'd held for 15 years. Our routine was predictable, safe, and I liked it that way. But life has a way of turning everything upside down when you least expect it. It all started on a seemingly ordinary Saturday in April. The morning was crisp, with that fresh mountain air that made living in Colorado worthwhile. Jennifer had left early for a dentist appointment, something about getting her teeth whitened. She'd been talking about it for weeks, saying she wanted to look her best for our upcoming anniversary dinner. I stayed home to fix the kitchen faucet that had been dripping for months. It was one of those projects I'd been putting off, but with the weekend free I finally decided to tackle it. I just finished installing the new cartridge when the doorbell rang. Rebecca stood at our front door, holding a coffee cup from Starbucks and wearing that bright smile that had made her Jennifer's best friend since high school. She was one of those people who seemed to know everyone's business in our neighborhood, but in a caring way rather than gossipy. "Hey Andrew," she chirped, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Where's Jen?" "At the dentist," I replied, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "She should be back in about an hour." Rebecca settled into one of our kitchen bar stools, the ones Jennifer had picked out 3 years ago during our kitchen renovation. She took a sip of her coffee and let out a contented sigh. "God, I needed this caffeine boost. I've been up since 5 with the kids." She paused, looking around the kitchen. "You know, Andrew, I have to say, Jennifer seems so much happier lately. I haven't seen her this energetic and glowing in years." Something about the way she said it made me look up from the sink where I was washing my tools. There was an odd inflection in her voice, almost like she was testing the waters. "What do you mean?" I asked, turning to face her fully. Rebecca's expression shifted slightly. The easy smile faltered for just a moment, and I caught a flicker of something that looked like panic across her features. "Oh, nothing specific," she said quickly, but her voice sounded forced. "She just seems, I don't know, more vibrant? More alive? It's like she's rediscovered something about herself." I set down the wrench I was holding and studied Rebecca's face. We'd known each other for over 2 decades, and I'd never seen her look quite so uncomfortable. "Rebecca, what are you trying to tell me?" She stared into her coffee cup for what felt like an eternity. When she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite identify. Guilt, maybe? Or pity? "Andrew, She started, then stopped. "I really shouldn't say anything. It's not my place." "Say anything about what?" The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. I could hear the new faucet dripping slightly. Apparently, I hadn't tightened something properly. The sound seemed amplified in the sudden tension of the kitchen. "Look," Rebecca said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, "I thought you knew. I assumed you were okay with it, or maybe you two had some kind of arrangement or something." My heart started beating faster. "Okay with what?" "Jennifer has been. She's been happy with someone else, Andrew. For months now." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually took a step backward, bumping into the counter behind me. "What did you just say?" Rebecca's face crumpled with regret. "Oh God, Andrew, I'm so sorry. I mean, she talks about him so openly, I assumed you had to know." "Him?" My voice came out as a croak. "His name is Steven. He's a personal trainer at that new gym Jennifer joined. She's been seeing him since last fall." The kitchen seemed to tilt around me. Last fall. That was when Jennifer had suddenly decided she needed to get in shape. She joined CrossFit Denver, that expensive gym across town. She'd been going there religiously 5 days a week for 6 months. "Are you sure?" I managed to ask. Rebecca nodded miserably. "She shows me pictures of them together. She talks about him all the time when we have lunch. She says he makes her feel young again, makes her feel desired in a way she hadn't felt in years." I slumped against the counter, feeling like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. 23 years of marriage. 2 decades of what I thought was love, trust, and partnership. "Andrew, I'm so sorry," Rebecca continued. "I really thought you knew. The way she talked about it so casually, I figured you two must have discussed it or worked something out." I looked at her through what felt like a fog. "She talks about it casually?" "Well, not exactly casually, but she doesn't act like she's doing anything wrong. She talks about Steven like he's this amazing thing that happened to her. She says she never expected to feel this way again at 50. After Rebecca left, practically fleeing, really, I sat in my kitchen for hours staring at the wall. The sound of that slightly dripping faucet became a metronome marking the dissolution of everything I thought I knew about my life. When Jennifer came home around 4 o'clock, she was practically glowing. Her teeth were indeed whiter, and she seemed to bounce through the front door. "Hey honey," she called out, her voice musical in a way I hadn't heard in years. "The dentist said my teeth look amazing. What do you think?" She gave me a brilliant smile and I felt sick to my stomach. How long had she been preparing herself for him? "They look great," I managed to say. She kissed me on the cheek, a quick, perfunctory peck, and started rummaging through the mail on the counter. "How was your day?" she asked absently. "Did you get the faucet fixed?" "Mostly," I replied, watching her carefully. Rebecca stopped by. I saw it, just for a split second her body went rigid. But she covered it quickly, continuing to flip through the mail. "Oh, that's nice. What did she want?" "Just to chat," I said. "She mentioned how happy you seem lately." Jennifer's smile became even brighter, but now I could see something artificial about it. "Well, I have been feeling good lately. The workouts are really paying off and I just feel more energetic." Workouts? Right. The next few days were torture. I found myself analyzing every word Jennifer said, every gesture, every expression. When she left for the gym, I wondered if she was really going there to exercise. When she came home late, claiming the traffic was bad, I wondered where she'd really been. But I didn't confront her yet. Some part of me was hoping Rebecca had been mistaken or gossiping, or maybe even lying for some reason I couldn't fathom. I needed to be sure. On Tuesday evening, I made my decision. Jennifer was getting ready to leave for her evening workout. "Jen," I called out as she grabbed her gym bag by the front door. "We need to talk." She turned around and I saw that flicker of panic again, the same expression Rebecca had worn. "About what, honey?" "I'm going to be late for my class." "About us? About our marriage? About whether you're happy?" Jennifer set down her gym bag and walked back toward me. Her expression had shifted into something I'd seen before. The look she used to give me when she thought I was being unnecessarily dramatic about something. "Of course I'm happy, Andrew. Why would you ask me that?" "Because Rebecca told me something that's been bothering me." The blood drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. "What did Rebecca say?" "She said you've been happy with someone else. Someone named Steven." Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. For a moment I thought she might actually tell me the truth. But then something shifted in her expression, and I watched her make the conscious decision to lie to my face. "Andrew, that's ridiculous. I don't know what Rebecca thinks she knows, but she's wrong. There's no Steven." She said it so convincingly that for a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. She seemed pretty sure about it. "Well, she's wrong," Jennifer said firmly. "Maybe she's confusing me with someone else, or maybe she misunderstood something I said. But I promise you, there's no other man in my life." She walked over and put her arms around me, looking directly into my eyes. "Andrew, you're the only man I want. You're the only man I've ever wanted since we got married. I love you." She kissed me then, soft and sweet, and I could smell her perfume, a new scent I'd noticed she'd started wearing a few months ago. "I have to go," she whispered against my lips. "But when I get home, why don't we open that bottle of wine we've been saving and talk about planning something special for our anniversary?" After she left, I sat on our couch and stared at our wedding photo on the mantelpiece. We looked so young, so certain about our future together. I tried to reconcile that couple with the conversation I'd just had, with the feeling in my gut that told me my wife was lying to my face. I decided I needed proof. The next evening, I told Jennifer I was going out to meet some colleagues for drinks. Instead, I drove to CrossFit Denver and parked across the street where I could see the entrance. Jennifer's car was already there. I waited for 2 hours. At 9:30, the gym's lights started turning off, and people began trickling out. I saw Jennifer emerge with a man I didn't recognize, tall, athletic build, probably in his mid-40s with graying hair and a confident stride. They stood by Jennifer's car, talking and laughing. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead in a gesture so intimate, so tender, that it made my chest ache. But they went to separate cars and drove off in different directions. I followed Jennifer home, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice me. When I got there 5 minutes after her, she was already inside, showered, and in her pajamas. "How was your workout?" I asked. "Great," she said brightly. "Really pushed myself tonight." "How were drinks with the guys?" "Fine," I lied just as easily as she was lying to me. I knew I should confront her then, but I needed more than a forehead kiss. I needed undeniable proof. The opportunity came the following Saturday. Jennifer announced she was going to the gym for a special weekend workshop, that would last most of the day. She packed a larger bag than usual and seemed particularly excited. After she left, I waited 30 minutes, then drove to the gym. Her car wasn't there. I spent the next hour driving around the area, checking parking lots of restaurants, hotels, anywhere they might go. Finally, I found her car at Confluence Park, a popular spot along the South Platte River where people went to walk, bike, or just enjoy the outdoors. I parked where I could see the walking trails and waited. It took 20 minutes before I spotted them. Jennifer and the man from the gym were walking hand in hand along the river trail, stopping frequently to talk and laugh. They looked like any other couple enjoying a beautiful Colorado morning. I watched them for almost an hour, and the longer I watched, the angrier I became. Not just at the betrayal, but at how comfortable they looked together. How natural. Jennifer smiled at this man in a way I hadn't seen her smile at me in years. When they stopped at a bench overlooking the river, he put his arm around her and she leaned into him. They sat like that for several minutes, just watching the water flow past. Then he turned to her and kissed her. Not a quick peck or a friendly kiss. A real kiss, passionate and deep, the kind of kiss that comes from people who know each other intimately. I don't remember getting out of my car. I don't remember walking across the park. The next thing I knew, I was standing 20 feet away from their bench and they were both staring at me in shock. "So this is Stephen," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Jennifer jumped up from the bench, her face white with terror. "Andrew, what are you doing here?" "Finding out the truth," I replied. "Since my wife apparently can't tell it to me herself." Stephen stood up slowly. He was taller than I'd realized, probably 6'2" to my 5'10", and in much better shape. But he didn't look angry or defensive. He looked sad. "Look, man," he said quietly, "I know this is a terrible situation. Do you?" I asked. "Do you know that she's been lying to me for months? Do you know that when I asked her directly about you, she looked me in the eye and told me you didn't exist?" Stephen glanced at Jennifer, who was now crying silently. "She told me you two were separated," he said. "She said you were living apart and just hadn't made it official yet." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what she told you? That we were separated?" Jennifer finally found her voice. "Andrew, please let me explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted. "Explain how you've been lying to both of us? How you told him we were separated while you were sleeping in my bed every night? How you told me he didn't exist while you were kissing him in parks?" The hurt and anger I'd been carrying for weeks finally boiled over. I looked at Stephen, this man who had unknowingly helped destroy my marriage. "Did you know she was still wearing her wedding ring when she was with you?" I asked him. Stephen's face changed. He looked down at Jennifer's left hand, where her wedding ring glinted in the morning sun. "Jennifer?" he said quietly. She was sobbing now, unable to speak. I walked closer to Stephen and he tensed up, probably expecting me to hit him. And God, I wanted to. I wanted to take out all my rage and betrayal on this man who had stolen my wife. But looking at his face, I realized he was as much a victim as I was. "She's been playing both of us," I told him. "You thought you were dating a separated woman who was free to be with you. I thought I was married to a faithful wife who loved me." Stephen sat back down on the bench heavily, like his legs wouldn't support him anymore. "Jesus, Jennifer," he whispered. "What have you done?" That's when Jennifer collapsed. Not literally but emotionally. She sank onto the bench between us and buried her face in her hands, her whole body shaking with sobs. "I didn't know how to tell either of you," she said through her tears. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. So you decided to hurt everyone instead?" I asked. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I never meant for it to happen. I went to the gym to get healthy, to feel better about myself. Stephen was just my trainer at first. But he was so kind to me, so encouraging. He made me feel beautiful again." "And what am I?" I asked. "Chopped liver?" "No, Andrew, you're safe. You're comfortable. You're the father of the life I built. But Stephen makes me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten I could feel." Her words cut deeper than any knife could have. 23 years of marriage reduced to safe and comfortable. Stephen stood up and walked a few steps away from us, running his hands through his hair. "I can't believe this," he said to no one in particular. "I can't believe I let myself get involved in this mess." He turned back to Jennifer. "You told me your marriage was over. You said you were just waiting for the right time to make it official. You've been lying to me for 4 months." "I know," Jennifer whispered. "I know I screwed everything up. I just didn't know how to choose." "Choose?" I stared at her. "You think this is about choosing? You think you get to audition replacements while you're still married to me?" Stephen walked back over to where we were sitting. "I'm out," he said simply. Jennifer, I'm sorry but I can't be part of this anymore. I don't date married women, and I especially don't date women who lie to me about being married. He looked at me then. And I'm sorry, Andrew. If I'd known the truth, none of this would have happened. With that, he walked away, leaving Jennifer and me alone on the bench by the river. We sat in silence for a long time. Jennifer had stopped crying, but she looked defeated, older somehow than she had that morning when she'd left for her gym workshop. What now? She finally asked. Now you come home and pack your things, I said. Andrew, please. No, I interrupted. I'm done, Jennifer. I'm done with the lies, done with being this safe and comfortable option while you go find excitement with other men. I'm done with being married to someone who can look me in the eye and lie without flinching. Can't we try counseling? Can't we try to work this out? I stood up from the bench and looked down at her. You made your choice the first time you kissed him. You made it every time you lied to me about where you were going. You made it when you told him we were separated while you were still sharing my bed. The only choice I have left is whether I'm going to let you keep making a fool of me. The drive home was silent. Jennifer followed me in her car, and I could see her crying in my rearview mirror. But I felt nothing except a strange kind of relief. The uncertainty was over. The wondering and worrying and second-guessing myself, it was all over. When we got home, I went straight to our bedroom and started pulling her clothes out of the closet. Jennifer stood in the doorway watching me for a few minutes, then quietly joined in. She packed methodically, taking only her personal belongings and leaving behind everything we'd bought together. Where will you go? I asked as she folded her clothes into suitcases. My sister's probably. At least until I can find an apartment. I remembered her sister Lisa, who lived in Boulder. Lisa had never liked me much, always thought Jennifer had settled when she married me. I wondered if she'd known about Stephen. It took us 3 hours to pack everything that was unquestionably hers. When we were done, the bedroom looked strange and lopsided, with empty spaces where her things had been. We carried the suitcases and boxes to the living room, creating a pile by the front door. It was remarkable how someone's entire presence in a house could be reduced to a few containers. The legal stuff, Jennifer said quietly. The house, the accounts, all of that. We'll figure it out through lawyers, I replied. I don't want to hash it out between us. She nodded, understanding that this wasn't a temporary separation or a trial period. This was the end. As she loaded the last box into her car, she turned back to me. Andrew, I want you to know that I did love you. I do love you. I got confused. I felt like I was disappearing, like I was just going through the motions of life, and Stephen made me feel like myself again. If you loved me, I said, you would have talked to me about feeling like you were disappearing. You would have given me a chance to help you feel like yourself again. Instead, you decided I wasn't worth the effort and went looking for someone who was. She was crying again, but quietly this time. I know I handled everything wrong. I know I hurt you in the worst possible way. I just want you to know it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because I was too selfish and too cowardly to deal with my own problems honestly. That might be the most honest thing you've said to me in months, I replied. After she drove away, I walked back into the house and locked the door behind me. The silence was profound, not just quiet, but empty in a way that made me understand the difference between being alone and being lonely. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my recliner, looking around the living room we'd decorated together over the years. The couch where we'd watched countless movies, the coffee table where we'd eaten dinner when we were too tired to sit at the dining room table, the mantelpiece with photos of our life together. My phone rang. It was my brother Mark, calling from Seattle. Hey Andrew. Just calling to check in. How are you and Jen doing? I stared at the pile of scotch in my glass and realized I was about to have to tell people what had happened. Our friends, our families, our neighbors, everyone who thought we had a solid marriage. Actually, Mark, I said, Jennifer and I are getting divorced. The conversation that followed was the first of many I would have over the next few weeks. Mark was shocked, asking what had happened, if there was anything he could do, whether I was sure this was the right decision. I gave him the basic facts without going into the painful details. After I hung up, I realized I had no idea how to be divorced. I'd been married for my entire adult life. I'd never lived alone, never had to make all my own decisions, never had to figure out what I wanted independent of what we wanted. Over the next few days, I started making the practical arrangements. I found a divorce attorney, a woman named Patricia Wells who had a reputation for being thorough and fair. I opened my own bank account and had my paycheck redirected there. I called our insurance companies and started the process of separating our policies. Each step felt like dismantling a structure I'd spent decades building. Jennifer called me several times during that first week, but I didn't answer. She left voicemails apologizing, asking if we could talk, wondering if I'd thought any more about counseling. I deleted them all without listening to them completely. 2 weeks after she moved out, I was served with divorce papers. Jennifer had filed first, which surprised me. Her attorney had crafted a petition that claimed irreconcilable differences and requested a fair division of assets. No mention of adultery, no accusations, just a clean legal dissolution. I was relieved, actually. She could have made things messier, could have tried to claim I was emotionally distant or that our marriage had been troubled for years. Instead, she was letting us end this with whatever dignity we could salvage. The house felt enormous and tomb-like without her. I'd never realized how much sound one person makes just by existing. Footsteps upstairs, water running in the bathroom, the rustle of pages turning in a book. Without Jennifer, the silence was so complete it seemed to have weight. I started staying later at work just to avoid coming home to the emptiness. My colleagues noticed my changed behavior, but I wasn't ready to explain, so I just told them I was going through some personal issues. My boss, a decent guy named Charles, pulled me aside and told me to take whatever time I needed. 3 weeks after Jennifer left, Rebecca called me. I almost didn't answer, still feeling angry that she'd been the one to inadvertently reveal Jennifer's affair. But curiosity got the better of me. "Andrew," she said, sounding nervous, "I wanted to call and apologize again. I had no idea Jennifer was lying to you about knowing. I thought you two had worked something out. It's not your fault, Rebecca. If you hadn't told me, I would have found out eventually. At least this way, I didn't waste any more years. How are you holding up?" I looked around my empty living room. "I'm surviving." "Jennifer called me yesterday," Rebecca said carefully. "She wanted to know if I'd talk to you, if I knew how you were doing." "What did you tell her?" "I told her she gave up the right to know how you're doing when she decided to cheat on you." I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Thank you for that. Andrew, can I ask you something? Are you sure there's no way to work this out? I mean, I know what she did was terrible, but 23 years is a long time to just throw away." "She threw it away, Rebecca. Not me. The marriage ended the moment she decided to start a relationship with another man while lying to both of us about it. I'm just acknowledging reality." After I hung up, I realized that Rebecca's call had crystallized something I'd been thinking about. Jennifer hadn't just cheated on me, she'd constructed an elaborate deception that had hurt multiple people. She'd lied to me about Stephen's existence, lied to Stephen about our marriage being over, and apparently lied to everyone else about what was happening in her life. That level of dishonesty wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a character flaw that ran deep enough to make me wonder if I'd ever really known her at all. A month after she moved out, I ran into Stephen at a coffee shop downtown. I almost didn't recognize him at first. He looked like he'd lost weight and there were dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he looked like he wanted to disappear, but I walked over to his table. "Mind if I sit down?" I asked. He nodded, looking uncomfortable but not unfriendly. "How are you doing?" I asked. "Like I got hit by a truck," he admitted. "You?" "Same." We sat in awkward silence for a moment, then Stephen spoke up. "I've been wanting to call you, actually. To apologize properly, not just in the heat of the moment at the park." "You don't need to apologize. You didn't know she was married. But I should have known something was wrong. Looking back, there were signs. She never wanted to go to places where we might run into people she knew. She always paid for things in cash. She never wanted me to pick her up at home. I thought about that. She told me she was going to the gym 5 days a week. Were you training her that often?" Stephen shook his head. 3 days a week, max. And we only started seeing each other outside the gym in January. So where was she going the other times? I don't know. I never asked. She said she liked to do cardio on her own sometimes, or that she was taking classes I didn't teach. We looked at each other with the dawning realization that Jennifer's deception might have been even more elaborate than either of us had realized. "Do you think there was someone else?" Stephen asked quietly. "Besides both of us?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "I don't know. But I'm not sure I want to find out." Stephen and I talked for another hour. Despite the bizarre circumstances that had brought us together, I found myself liking him. He was honest, straightforward, and clearly devastated by his role in the destruction of my marriage, even though he'd been deceived as thoroughly as I had been. When I got home that afternoon, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I went through Jennifer's old emails and phone records, looking for evidence of other relationships. I didn't find anything conclusive, but I found enough to make me suspicious. There were emails too, and from men I didn't recognize, deleted text conversations, credit card charges at restaurants and hotels on days when she told me she was doing other things. The deeper I dug, the more I realized that the Jennifer I thought I'd been married to for 23 years might have been largely fictional. The woman who'd shared my bed, my home, my dreams for the future had been living an entirely separate life that I'd known nothing about. That night, I called Patricia Wells, my attorney. Patricia, I need to know something. If I can prove my wife was having multiple affairs, does that change anything about the divorce settlement? In Colorado, we have no-fault divorce laws, she explained. Adultery doesn't typically affect the division of assets unless it involved spending significant marital funds on the affairs. What? Have you discovered something? I told her about my conversation with Stephen and what I'd found in Jennifer's old records. Andrew, Patricia said carefully, I need to ask you this. Do you really want to open that can of worms? You're already getting divorced. Do you really want to put yourself through the pain of discovering just how extensive her betrayals might have been? I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. Part of me wanted to know everything, wanted to understand just how thoroughly I'd been deceived. But another part of me recognized that some truths are too painful to be worth knowing. In the end, I decided Patricia was right. I was already losing my wife and my marriage. I didn't need to lose my sanity and my peace of mind as well. The divorce was finalized on a gray Tuesday in October, exactly 6 months after Rebecca had accidentally revealed Jennifer's affair. I met Patricia at the courthouse, signed the papers, and walked out a single man for the first time since I was 27 years old. Jennifer was there too with her attorney, but we didn't speak to each other. We sat on opposite sides of the courtroom like strangers, which I suppose we were. After 23 years of marriage, we'd become strangers. As I walked to my car, Jennifer caught up with me in the parking lot. Andrew, wait, she called out. I turned around and looked at her. She was wearing a navy blue dress I didn't recognize and had cut her hair shorter. She looked different, older somehow, but also more like the woman I'd first met in college. I just wanted to say goodbye properly, she said, and to tell you again how sorry I am for everything. I know you are, I replied. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry too. Sorry that we couldn't figure out how to make each other happy. Sorry that you felt like you had to look elsewhere for what you needed. Sorry that it all ended this way. She started crying then, quiet tears that she wiped away quickly. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me? She asked. I thought about that question for a moment. I don't know, Jennifer. I hope so, eventually. But right now, I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward. Are you going to stay in the house? For now. Maybe eventually I'll downsize, but it's home, you know? She nodded. I'm moving to Phoenix. My sister found me a job there, and I think I need a fresh start somewhere completely different. That's probably a good idea. We stood there for another moment, two people who'd shared more than half their lives together, trying to figure out how to say goodbye. I hope you find someone who makes you happy, Jennifer said finally. You deserve that. I hope you figure out what you're looking for, I replied. And I hope next time you find it honestly. She nodded and walked to her car. I watched her drive away, and I knew it was the last time I would ever see her. That evening, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine and thought about the past 6 months. My marriage was over, my wife was gone, and my life had been completely upended. But for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt something like peace. I wasn't happy, not yet. But I wasn't angry anymore either. I was just empty in a way that felt clean rather than devastating. I thought about Stephen, who'd probably learned the same hard lesson I had. That you never really know someone completely, and that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. I thought about Rebecca, who'd inadvertently started this whole unraveling with one careless comment. Most of all, I thought about Jennifer, driving toward a new life in Phoenix, carrying the weight of her choices with her. The house around me was quiet, but it no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a space waiting to be filled with whatever came next. I didn't know what that would be yet. But for the first time in months, I was curious to find out. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.